Welcome back. Stephanie again. In this video, I'm going to explain the job classifications that FEMA hires and what that means. Like, what is a core versus a permanent full-time employee? I'll also do my best to explain salary and benefits for each of these as well. Quick caveat, I'm not completely fluent in this part of FEMA, but I can speak on it to an extent. If you have more specific questions, then feel free to reach out to a FEMA HR representative to ask those questions. Then we'll take a look at USAJobs, and I will show you how to search, find, and read these job postings so you know what you're applying for. So let's start by explaining this idea of classifications. FEMA or the federal government sometimes might refer to these as job types as well, but I'll probably use them both interchangeably. Most federal agencies have just like one or two, but FEMA has like 6. The ones I will cover and attempt to demystify are PFT, Core, Reservist, and Local Hire. And I know you may already be kind of confused based on what I said in the last video, but it'll all make sense. Hopefully. So in layman's terms, how your job is classified or typed at FEMA just dictates from what pot of money you get paid and how your position is supposed to function. So let's begin with PFT, or permanent full-time. These positions are funded using the same pot of money that they use for the majority of all other federal positions. So those at the EPA, at NOAA, at IRS, at DOT, all pretty much use the same pot of money from Congress. PFTs at FEMA use the typical GS scale that you've heard of, GS 1 through 15, and they get all the federal benefits. While it is the stablest of all FEMA jobs, if there is a government shutdown, PFTs are the only employees at FEMA who are going to be furloughed, in addition to the senior executives, but that's a whole different video. So at FEMA, PFT is by and large pretty cushy, but permanent full-time employees deploy to disasters the least, and surprisingly, there aren't as many PFT positions available at FEMA as you would think. Don't quote me on this, but I think only like 25% of the entire agency is classified as a PFT. So let me show my handy graphic from the last video to illustrate and to start to connect these pieces for you a little bit. As you can see, PFT positions are found pretty much only at headquarters, the regions, and the service support centers. And there's not even too many at each one of those locations. So if PFTs don't staff the majority of these offices, who does? Well, that would be core employees, or cadre of on-call response and recovery employees. I was a core employee for my entire tenure at FEMA. A core salary, as well as I'm pretty sure everybody else who's going to be on this list, is paid through something called the Disaster Relief Fund, or the DRF. This is a completely separate pot of money that FEMA acquires every year through Congress to fund just about everything that has to do with disasters. Using the DRF to pay employees allows FEMA more flexibility to grow the agency, hire quickly, and to address any urgent needs that arise from a disaster. So this is why, when there is a government shutdown, the majority of FEMA employees will not be furloughed. They're on a completely different funding stream. So let's show that graphic again so you can see where you find core positions throughout the country. As you can see, cores work at pretty much all of the offices and can travel full-time if you get that I am core position. Now the cool thing about this is that there's very little difference functionally between cores and PFTs in the desk job category. Core employees are full-time federal employees. They receive the exact same benefits as PFTs, including salary, pension, TSP, health insurance, maternity, paternity leave, leave accrual, and so on. The only true main advantage to being a PFT versus a core is that you're more able to move jobs between federal agencies if you want. But you can pretty much retire as a core employee, and cores are more likely to get that coveted field experience as well. Now, there is one statement on USAJobs postings about core positions that always dissuades people from applying, and it's this one. People see temporary and 2 years and immediately click away. While yes, technically this statement is true, the chance that you will not be extended is next to none. There are too many disasters and too much turnover for them to ever swipe your position. What really happens is after 2 years, you get a random email from your supervisor asking you to sign this one-page document, and you do so in 5 minutes, and then you go on with your life. Like I said, core and PFT are functionally the same. One is just funded through the DRF, and that funding pot is never going to decrease. One last thing about core. The title is slightly misleading. Cadre of on-call response and recovery employee. As you can see in the graphic, cores work primarily in the desk job category, at HQ and in the regions. Because they staff such a large portion of these offices, if a huge disaster were to happen, and FEMA were to pull the majority of their core employees out to the field to staff it, there wouldn't be anyone left to run the agency or run their programs. As mentioned in the previous video, if you're in a region and a disaster strikes your region, there's a higher chance you may be going to that austere environment for some time as a core employee. But not so much for FEMA HQ or the service centers or regions not affected by the disaster. Instead, FEMA taps reservists to be that true on-call responder. So now let's talk about reservists, the heart and soul of the agency. I was never a reservist, but they hold a very special place in my heart. Reservists are also funded by the Disaster Relief Fund, but they are pretty dissimilar from most core employees, except I am core. They are considered intermittent employees, so not full-time. They're paid hourly. They do not receive benefits unless deployed, and those benefits are pretty limited from what I understand. They spend most of their time in the field and are hired by the cadres as opposed to an office. Reservists can live anywhere in the US, unlike those desk job roles that generally have to stay somewhere within commuting distance of the office. Also, FEMA reservists are not like military reservists. There's no drilling 1 week in a month, 2 weeks out of the year, boot camp, anything like that. But I will say, Congress recently just extended USARA protections for FEMA reservists, the same protections that military reservists have for their full-time jobs. This basically means that you can deploy somewhere with FEMA as a reservist, and your full-time job cannot legally fire you for doing this. Implementing this at the agency is still in the works, but I'm sure more is going to come out soon from FEMA about this. And last, we have local hires. Now again, I'm least familiar with this job type, but I know a little bit. Local hires are ultimately funded by the Disaster Relief Fund and are hired to do disaster work temporarily for a specific disaster. Like reservists, they're paid hourly and have benefits only while they're working. These positions will pop up on USAJobs when field leaders on the ground decide that they need specific skill sets that they're unable to fill through current FEMA employees. If you get hired as a local hire, you will work that specific disaster, no other disasters. So before we jump over to USAJobs, I'm going to put a chart up that kind of summarizes everything I just went over in this video. Okay, so now we're in USAJobs. This is the site where you can find pretty much any FEMA position. And to access this, just go to usajobs.gov, and this is what you will see. So to find FEMA jobs specifically, we're going to go to this keywords box here and type in, you guessed it, FEMA. And then I usually click this drop down that they pop up with to filter out all of the fluff. And then you will see these are all the jobs that are currently available at FEMA. We have 145 jobs right now. So two things I want to do with this part of the video real quick is first show you how to figure out what type of job each one of these is, whether it be a core versus a PFT versus a reservist versus local hire, without actually having to click into the job, because you'll see it's kind of confusing. There's a lot of different things that will pop up here. And then I also want to go into a specific job posting for a PFT or a core position in the desk job category to show you kind of what you should look for to begin to understand what the job even is and how to read it. I'll point out what's important and what's kind of not as important as well. So let's scroll back to the top. And I want to start with PFT here. And to know if something's a PFT, it's pretty simple. And you'll see it's going to get even simpler as I go through the other job types, but PFT uses the GS scale, or the general schedule. So if we scroll through and look for a position, we're going to see sometimes there will be these two letters here next to the salary that will say GS. So if it says GS, you know immediately without looking at anything else that this is a permanent full-time position. Some other ways to know if something's going to be a desk job versus a field job, or a permanent full-time / core versus a reservist or something, is because they will list the salary as annually as opposed to hourly. And just some other little things as you kind of are going through this website. If it's a core or a PFT position at one of the offices, so a desk job, they usually will have the word specialist or analyst somewhere in the job title, as this one does. And then also the location down here will be one of those offices that I had mentioned in the last video. And hopefully now you understand why I went over the locations. So this one is in Oakland, California, which is the Region 9 headquarters. For a core position, a desk job core position, instead of GS scale like here, they use something called an IC. So if we scroll down quickly, I'm sure we'll find one. Yep, here's one right here. This is an IC, these two letters right next to the salary, so I know right off the bat this is a core position. They have the salary listed as annually as opposed to hourly. It's a program analyst position, and it has the location of Washington, D.C., which is headquarters. So if you're looking for a desk job, those are the two things that you pretty much just need to look for. Either GS if it's permanent full-time, or IC for core, and the location. For reservist positions, even simpler, they actually put one word in the job title to help tip off that it is a reservist position, and that is the word intermittent. So if we scroll down right here, they have this word intermittent interspersed with this very long job title, but I don't even have to look at anything else to know this is a reservist position. It has intermittent. If you look at the salary, it is shown as hourly as opposed to annually. And then they also have location negotiable after selection, which is true because reservists can live anywhere in the country. For local hires, very, very similar to the reservists in that they put two words in their job title, and I bet you can guess what they are. It is local hire, shockingly. So if we scroll through, I don't think there's many open right now, so it might take a second to find one. Oh, but here we go. So we scrolled through, and if you're looking for a local hire position, like you knew there was a disaster somewhere and they're probably hiring for it, you can just look for local hire. And right here we have that. And then also you can see the hourly rate. And this one is in Puerto Rico, which has had multiple disasters. So that's how you can tell if something is a permanent full-time versus core versus reservist versus local hire very quickly without actually having to go in. I went ahead and clicked into one of the job postings so you know what it kind of looks like once you click into the job. And this is a position at headquarters, and I think this is this is permanent full-time. So a lot of the stuff on that first page will be over here on the right. So we have a GS level, so I know this is permanent full-time. Salary is an annual, and the location right here is Washington, D.C., so I know this is headquarters. So when I click into these job postings, there's really only 3 places I look to understand potentially what this position is and if I even want to apply for it, and if I can apply for it, if I'm qualified. So those 3 places I look are first the summary. This is a really good job posting because it actually is not as vague as some of the others, and you'll see that a lot of the others are pretty vague, but right here it says exactly where this job is. It's in the Office of Response and Recovery, Response Directorate, Planning Division, Regional Planning Branch. So that's really great. That's the first place I'll look. A lot of postings don't even put anything up there. Then I will scroll down past these first 3 paragraphs because every single posting uses these exact 3 paragraphs every single time. And then I go down to here where it will put a few more bullets, generally speaking, that might explain a little bit more about the position. And this one does a pretty good job about being a little bit more specific than some other ones I've seen. So this is the second place I go. Then, if I'm liking it so far, then I'll keep scrolling down and I'll go right past requirements, because again, these are the same for every job posting, pretty much. And I go to qualifications. And I'll explain in the next video, but this is probably the most important part of your resume. You want to match what's in this qualification section very closely to your resume when you apply. So I look at the summary, then I go to those bottom bullets under duties, and then I go to qualifications, which will give you a few more bullets, usually similar but different than the duties. This will hopefully give you the best understanding of what the job is, especially in the desk job category, and also if it's something that you want to apply for and you can apply for. And then the rest of the stuff on here, you can read through it if you want, but generally they're all going to be the same for every job posting. This will pretty much be the same paragraph for every job posting. Education might change, but a lot of them are the same. How you'll be evaluated is pretty much the same for everything. Required documents are the same. How to apply is the same. Everything is pretty much the same. The thing that is going to be changed every job position is the summary section, these bullets, and what's under qualifications. That's all you need to know. That's all you need to look at anytime you look at a job posting. Okay, so that's it for this video, and please stick around for the next one. Let me know if you have questions, and thanks again for watching.